But however, before I do start, Chris, I was given this like song that I'm supposed to play, so I don't know something about this one. 60 seasons. Can you hear that?
No, I'm kind of
Is that your Trailblazer, your high tops, Trailblazer and high tops?
Oh, I got to hear this. What is this?
16 season, hardwood miles on your shoes, pain on your elbows, sweat in the garden room, big man screaming, taking hits for the crew, Portland roaring, every night they believe.
I'll play the whole thing at the end of the pod. Michael sent that to us. It was your Trailblazer and High Tops, your song they did. So in Medford, Reagan, is that where they did it? Somebody did it and recorded it in Medford or something?
I heard about that. Yeah, it's funny. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, but I heard there was a song made down in Medford. So
yeah, you'll get the full version at the end of the podcast, everybody.
All right, good,
so,
good.
Yeah.
I've got to listen to
it. Chris Dudley, running for governor, not president, as we were just talking about international affairs.
I was trying to find this, the worst photo of all time. Me and Chris Dudley from 2010 at some event in Bend.
Oh, that's awesome.
I would have been like 15 years old.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Very cool.
So you can see the height difference. I think you've still got a few inches on me.
Yeah.
I don't think you've grown, Reagan.
Yeah, Reagan, how tall are you now?
5'10".
Okay. Yeah, I still got a few inches on you.
You're like 6 foot, something like that?
Yeah, just a little over. Just a little over.
How tall? And now I met your one son that worked for Cliff Benz. He's tall too. He's like 6'8" though, right?
No. Sam's 6'2".
Oh, is he? Okay.
And he's our youngest. Charles is 6'5". And then Emma, our daughter, is about 6'1". And then you might have seen also Dylan, our son-in-law.
Yeah.
He's 6'4"-ish.
Well, he's got to be if he's dating if he's married to a 6'1". Yeah. He's not marrying Reagan.
He was a real good baseball player.
Oh, really? That was his thing?
Yeah, he was baseball.
Oh, yeah, I love Reagan.
I love baseball. And that's what I was like, man, basketball obviously was your thing, and I don't know much about basketball, but I do know Michael Jordan tried to go from playing basketball to baseball. Did you ever attempt a sports conversion like that, or did you ever want to play another sport?
No, I mean, when I was little, I played Little League baseball, and I did love baseball, but I fell in love with basketball, and I became all basketball
all the time.
So there was nothing that I thought about. Like I like, some being up here, and after retired, I love skiing, love getting outdoors, love doing things, but nothing where I even had a thought about being professional or at that level.
Did you ever play with Michael Jordan? I don't know the timelines if you guys ever overlapped.
No, we overlapped. In fact, I played when I was a sophomore in college. I used to go down to one of my teammates was from North Carolina. We'd go down and work Dean Smith's camps, and Dean Smith was Michael Jordan's coach at Carolina, and Michael was there, and he had just become a pro, and yeah, so I had a lot of overlap with him. He probably came in 85, maybe 84, maybe it was 84. My rookie year was 87.
Okay.
So
same generation.
Same generation, unfortunately, a lot of times, because there were some teams he took care of.
I was going to say, was he tough to play against?
Yeah. I was on. You may not remember this, but Brian might. There used to be a Gatorade commercial where he hits a shot and he's pumping his fist and he's all excited. Well, that was when he was with the Bulls and I was with the Cavs. And at Game 5, and it was the deciding game. He hit the last second shot, and I was on that team. Unfortunately, so he kind of broke our heart on that one.
Yeah,
we were actually the better team. we were the higher seed.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a
I thought
big.
you were going to tell me you were in the background of the Gatorade commercial while he's pumping his fist.
No, 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 no. Just on that team, and that was kind of a coming out for him a little bit with that big win in the playoffs, and
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
So
crazy. Do you have his cell phone number? Have you called him for a campaign donation, or like how does that work?
I haven't. If I run into him, I will ask him though.
I mean, we got to get some more checks, Chris. I mean, what
Yeah,
are we
I know.
doing? You know,
That's
I mean,
true. That's
Were-
I
true.
guess
Were
maybe
you-
he said he gave through Nike. That might have been his thing, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say, were you a Nike guy when you played, or are you a convert?
I was a Nike. I mean, I started early in my career. I was Converse, and then went to Nike.
Uh, I always that was kind of my lead in. I always felt politics is like basketball, you know. And speaking of basketball, before we leave it and get into politics, though, did you watch of course, Crook County Cowboys, you know, at the 5A, 6A playoff? They were insane this weekend. And that 6A Tualatin team they won on the last second basket, that was just awesome. I don't know if you caught any of that, but
No, I saw the scores and saw the little recap and
yeah.
somewhere. I just looked it up, and so Crook. Yeah, I did. Yeah, obviously, they had a great team, and Tualatin, it sounded like an incredible game.
Oh, that was I mean, they were down, I think 5 points, and they scored 5 points in like 9 seconds to beat the other team by one or something. It's pretty
Wow.
wild. So, yeah, fun stuff.
Wow.
Well,
Well, I just say on that it was 20 years ago. So I just last week was in Portland, and we retired Kevin Love's jersey, who I coached at Lake Oswego. And that
oh,
was
that's right.
that
You
was pretty because
okay.
it coincided with basically 20 years since we had won the state title there. And
Oh, wow.
that was some of Oregon's best because you had the player of the year. Kevin was the number one player in the country, and then you
Yeah.
had Kyle Singler down South Medford, who was the fifth rated player in the country. And Kyle obviously went on to play at Duke and then played in the NBA. So that was a special time to play those games at Matt Court.
Yeah, I can
Pretty cool.
imagine. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of fun. Did you coach for long or just a little bit?
I coached for a couple years. I was, probably probably about 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Three of which with Kevin.
And then it didn't really have the bug like it did.
I
You
did,
enjoyed it?
I later I would coach my kids and do, but I always thought about it. I just, yeah, I just did it for coaching
Yeah.
kids, just volunteering.
Of course, if you're coaching Kevin Love and then you go to like, coaching me, it's kind of hard to go that far down.
Coaching anybody after Kevin's, Kevin was a special talent.
Changes the game a little bit when you have to
Yeah.
go that further down. Well, I kind of, Reagan, of course, loves baseball, but I love basketball. I coached my boys all the way through. And this Crook County group, I coached them all the way through eighth grade, really, like the school ball stuff. And then Lowenbach coached them in which is Bryce's dad, who's that really great center there. And
Yeah.
it was fun. I always loved it. But I always kind of feel like, politics is like that, right? We have our team and they have their team. And so it's kind of like we try to draft the best players, especially with the legislature, because I do mostly like legislative races. And, so we try to put our best players on the field and and they put their best players on the field. And I try to recruit people, I'm sure, just like the NRCC does and everybody. And I always think that way. And when I think of politics, I'm thinking very like legislatively speaking. And then when you get into the governor's race, it's very like, I don't know, wrestling, golf. It's like one on one, where you try to legislatively, we try to put together a team, and then running for governor, it's just you. And it's very tough to work on governor's races because you get so invested in one person to do it all. And people look at the governor's race and they go, Chris, you need to fix everything.
Yeah.
And I always wonder, like, how are you going to fix everything as the governor? Because you're only one branch, right? So
Yep.
is that how are you kind of navigating those questions when people ask, how are you going to fix X, Y, Z? Right?
Well, let me. I'll get there. And there's kind of two parts, and one is because you bring up a good good question. And when you brought up the legislative races, that when I ran in 2010, one thing I was really proud of, and as you know, that was the closest election in the past 70 years. I do the going back to sports. I give the basketball analogy that we lost in double overtime. Thought we had it won Tuesday, actually lost on Thursday.
Yeah.
But the thing that I'm really proud of about that race was getting the energy going, getting people excited across the state that it was possible to win. And two was it was with that was running on a message that was positive, and I think brought more people into the tent, so to speak. It got a broad energy going. And then when I was traveling the state campaigning, I made sure to campaign with those running for the state senate or state house legislators, and really try to, because you need that when you get there. And
Yeah.
and there were good people. We had a good group that, as you know, good group that year. And it was I enjoyed it. I think it was helpful. I think I helped them. I think they helped me. Kind of the team, because I'm a team guy. I'm a team player. You can't do
Yeah.
everything by yourself. You got to have a team. And having that race, we had the biggest pickup in the Oregon legislature history, at least as far back as I could look, because we picked up 8 seats overall, 6 and 2. And we went from super minority, like where we are now, to basically balanced. It was 30-30, 14-16. And that was a huge deal, and I think very good for our state. Even though we lost the election on incredibly close election, it held the Governor Kitzhaber to his feet to the fire, where he had to do things that he probably normally would not have done if he hadn't been pushed
Yeah.
that way. And he actually thought he had lost it. And then with the legislature being balanced, it was a good time for Oregon in having that balance. And so to answer your question, I mean, the first thing is I'd like to get in there as governor and not be in a super minority position in both houses. That's a
Yeah.
big deal to me. And I will work with the same thing again. I will work with the candidates, work with those running, because that is a very, very big deal. And then, when you get in as governor, you have a number of tools, power of the pen to be able to veto bills, power of the pulpit. And that's a big one, to be able to talk about
Yeah.
issues, focus on issues, really force the agenda. And when you win the governorship, just like any other election, you do have a mandate of some sort where the people have voted on what your message is. So you have a mandate to talk about those issues. And for me, it's education, economy, livability. Focus on those areas. And then, so you have all those, those tools, which are really important.
Yeah, I think that's when Glenn Youngkin won. I mean, he brought in a wave with him as well.
Yep.
And I think that's because I know in 22, when I was running the legislative races and Vicky was the leader and
Yep.
somebody else's dad was the leader on this pod, but
Yep.
Tim, and we had a great
People. Yep.
we had a great synergy between us, and we picked up the most legislative seats that year since 2010. But the coordination with Christine really was non-existent, to be honest with you. So I think the best way to win those legislative seats is because if you look at where we will pick up legislative seats, Marion County, Clackamas County, Deschutes County, like these are counties you have to carry
Yep.
to win the governor's race. So the synergy is super strong there. For us to work together to make sure that we, get the non-affiliated voters to vote to the right and what have you. But I just think, and even in Medford, look at that. I mean, there's a Senate seat down there. We got to win.
Yeah, Brad.
You have to
Brad
win
Hicks.
those.
I was down with him 2 weeks ago. And I look forward to that opportunity. And I do think you have to be coordinated. You have to help push. You have to have that energy. You need each other. And so I think that's mutually beneficial and something, frankly, I enjoyed. both with Vicky and Tim and others at that time in 2010.
Yeah.
That was a big deal. We had good group and a lot of energy.
Yeah, it really was. And there was a strong get out the vote effort in 10. And we also had a strong get out the vote effort in 22 where we had paid. I mean, I think we knocked on like 1.5 million doors
Yeah.
then and stuff. And I really believe that's got to be part of our strategy is one, we can win. I think when you say you can win the governor's race, it does energize people.
It does.
There is something to that, you know.
I would tell you, Brian, as I was I've traveled the state. I think we figured out we've done over 4,000 miles in the first 40 days. It's something we've been everywhere. And I will walk into rooms and what we would do is we would do a round table. You know how they work, but
Yeah.
you have legislative leaders or you have commissioners, or because it's a lot of time they were in session, so maybe it was more the commissioners, mayors, but also business leaders, education. Have a round table, and then you'd have a meet and greet. And the meet and greets, we had standing room only in certain spots, and it was a real energy out there. And I would say, hey, number one is this is winnable. We can win this election. The governor has a 65%, whatever disapproval rating, and people don't think we're going down the right path and are ready for change. I'll obviously make the argument it's got to be the right message with the right messenger
Yeah.
to tap into that. But I'll say, I understand how people feel, but your vote does matter. And you've got to get out, you've got to vote, you've got to talk to others, get others excited because it matters. And I will tell them, I said, there's probably nobody in the state who can say that more than me with a straight face walking in here because I lost by 20,000 votes. And every vote matters. And if I'd gotten every single vote in Eastern Oregon or Southern Oregon or wherever I might be
Yeah.
standing, say, we wouldn't be in this mess that we're in today. And so your vote matters. And so it's really, I'm pounding that message everywhere I go.
I think that, and you're kind of getting into what I wanted to talk about next, which was this is probably, which is interesting to me because 2022 is obviously perceived as a better year for Republicans than 2026 is currently on track to be right now. And so, but the field in 2022 was, of course, Drazen, who was pretty new as a legislator. You had Bob Tiernan, Stan Pulliam, Bridget Barton. Basically, Pulliam was a mayor, but nobody else who had experience either running statewide or had held elected office. This time you've got Drazen again, more legislative experience. You've got Deal, who's also a legislator. You got Bethel, who's county commissioner, and then you've got you, who has run before for statewide office. So there's a deeper and I would say better field this time overall. Why would you choose 2026 to run? And then going on that, how do you see your path to winning the primary to get to that general election matchup?
Yeah, and I'll start off by saying I didn't choose 2026 over 2022 because 2022 probably was the better, just by conventional wisdom.
Sure.
Just by the simple fact, I mean, we all know the conventional wisdom that it's easier in a midterm when your party is not in power in the presidency, and that's kind of the basics. And usually there's some truth to that. For me, this wasn't so much evaluating this year versus another year. This was for me being involved with a number of things. I've been asked since 2010. I've been asked about running basically every cycle.
Yeah.
But
You and Walden, I think, get asked every time, when are you running for governor?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I had I sat down with my wife after 2010, and as we said, great experience, loved it. So many ways. It can be tough on the family. And afterwards, Chris, my wife's name is Chris also, and I talked, and she said, I don't want you to run again. We should not run again until the kids are out of high school. And that made sense to me. And family is incredibly important to me. And as you guys know, it's a sacrifice. And so we that was our intention. We tell people that we're not doing anything until the kids got out of high school. And so youngest graduated high school in, I don't know, 2019, 2020, something like that. And I'd been involved with a number that I'd helped support every gubernatorial candidate after me. I remember meeting with Dennis Richardson in my storage shed in Lake Oswego. And it's kind of funny. You remember it because it was raining, it was dark, and I'm giving him everything I had, my policy papers, my mailing lists, my donor, just because I wanted him. Dennis was a good man, and
Incredible.
helped Bud Pierce, helped Newt, even helped Christine a little bit. So it was something I was passionate about, and then I just kind of, whether it's a blessing or a curse, it's hard for me to stay out and just enjoy life when you see what's going on. And it's just one thing after another just hit me where it's like this state has to do better. We have to turn it around. And I was involved with Rip City Forever. I helped found that. That was focused on letting government be aware that you're going to have a situation here with a new owner that might want to move the team, that you got to look at the arena, do certain things. And you realize Portland and Oregon is competing nationally with other cities and states, and you realize how bad our reputation is. Marshall Glickman was my partner in that. His dad, Harry Glickman, founded the Blazers, and Marshall was over in London on business for the NBA and doing different things. And he said people over there are talking about how bad it is in Portland, and we have a bad reputation right now and need to get fixed. And then it's a gut punch to me when we're for fourth graders ranked 50th, dead last in the country for education, 47th overall. Or you see or you see where what's happened there, and just across our state, and you just go, we can do better. And so this is a long way of answering your question, but it truly wasn't hey, this year is better than the other year politically. What's your best? When do you time it up? And it's all that's no. It's like this has to get done, and it has to get done now. Yeah. And I really feel very strongly, and this isn't. I'm not a politician by nature, and so it's not hyperbole. It's to say that we're at a real tipping point for the state. If Portland goes another 4 years on this same path and gets in this economic doom loop, you keep digging, it gets harder and harder to turn some of this around. And so it was really a passion about the situation where our state is and the need to change it than it was evaluating which year was better.
And then how do you win in the primary, I guess, is the question. Because I mean, maybe you don't think the field is better. I don't want to necessarily make any assumptions, but I mean, how do you win in an experienced field like this with other politicians who are running that may have experience either campaigning or in government?
Well, and again, I focus on what I do versus what others are doing. And, 2020, like Bob Tiernan he's got a lot of experience and he was a good candidate, and Bridget, and, so not a knock on anybody from there. And I think with this, obviously, my analysis was fairly simple. I kind of told you that Oregon has to do better. We have to change it. B, present governor doesn't have the will or the knowledge to do so. C, I didn't see anybody else who was running who I thought could win a statewide election, and we have to win a statewide election.
Okay, so that's your primary argument is that these other Republicans, maybe people can have their own ideas on what the reasons are, but you don't think they can win a statewide election, and you believe that you can, that you're the only candidate in this race.
I hope they can, but if I don't do it, but I think it's time for an outsider, and I think both sides of the aisle are tired of all the bickering and all the arguing and the partisanship. And I do think it's time for an outsider to come in and say, hey, we got serious issues. We got to work on these. We got to get together. We got to focus on these things. To me, it's a state of emergency on day one when in education you're ranked 50th. And that should upset everybody. in our state. And to me, that's unacceptable. And focus on those core. It's unacceptable that we're 47th in job creation. 46 is a place to do business. Portland's 80th out of 81 cities. And I could go on and on and on
Yeah.
and on.
I was just
And
reading that about Portland being 80th out of
no,
81. And
it's
it's just
crazy.
despicable, is
It
what
is.
that
It
is.
is. It's horrific. Anyway, I could. But the point being is that we have to make change. I think it's time for an outsider to come in. Frankly, I think it's time
Mhm.
for somebody with a business background as governor. We haven't had that in 40 years. That we've had somebody who's had a business background, and I've made the argument that I don't think Salem's problems are going to be fixed by somebody from Salem. And so that was my right or wrong, but that's my
Yeah,
that's
that's
my
fair.
thought process on it. And again, it's not a knock or a crit. I'm doing what I think is right for the state of Oregon. It's not seen, it's everybody can run. They make their own arguments, and people will decide. But I think that argument frankly, is compelling, and I think it's
Yeah.
something we need right now.
The one thing that I like about your argument, and I talk to a lot of Republicans, is I really believe your third point, which is what I've been kind of harping on for a long time. I think Republicans in this state are so frustrated with being where we're at that we just want to win. Like we want to win so bad. And I think that, and statewide, like we can win a legislative seat or we can win some seats in 22 and then we give them right back in 24 or whatever, or somebody changes parties and we just get dejected. So I think that desire to win and to have somebody at the top of the ticket who can win is just so vitally important because the down ballot stuff just is so critical to us that like we first talked about, like if you go into power if you're still in the super minority, you're just gonna you go veto something and they just go fine, well screw you, and they just overturn your veto, and then all you're left with is line item veto, right, of your budgets and stuff, and that's you're just kind of become powerless, and then Dan Rayfield will sue you every second for everything, and then it just becomes this huge mess. So I think people got to understand you got to have a legislature that at least gets out of the super minority, and maybe a few more seats. And I hope, hopefully, culturally speaking, maybe our state has shifted a little bit more to the right, even from where we were in 22. And then Kotek is clearly messed up enough that maybe she blunts the President Trump problem that we have in our midterm. And I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's more hope than it is statistics for me. But I that's what I look at. I think that Ed also has some opportunities that I like about his candidacy that are different. What I don't like is a rematch. And I've kind of come to that conclusion in my mind, in my statistical mind, that I don't think rematches work well for us. And I think we need something. And I think that's what you got at too. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I don't know. Reagan may disagree with me, but that's kind of where my head's at these days in this
Yeah, no,
race.
I think those are important. Well, I'm sorry, Reagan, were you going to say something?
Not necessarily. I'm still forming my thoughts about this race because I'll tell you, I start out in the camp of this is an incredibly difficult race to win just because of because of how nationalized our elections have become. And so the real challenge is, and I think this is true for all the candidates, and I think it's the goal of all the candidates, is not to nationalize this race, it's to make it local. Because all the polling I'm seeing is showing that while both Governor Kotek and President Trump are unpopular in Oregon, Governor Kotek is about 10 points behind Trump in terms of the positive, right? Where Trump's basically locked up most of the Republicans and then some independents in Oregon who are more conservative. So he gets about 45%, and then he has about 55%. The problem with the governor is she's at also 55 negative, but only 35 positive, right? And so I think that's what the opportunity is. It's just been so challenging overall for Republicans to win a statewide election. And I think part of that has been in the past has just been a resource question where we don't have the same number of boots on the ground. We've got labor unions and other groups spending into themselves. They'll spend themselves into massive deficits to protect the governor's office. They'll go out and get national money if they have to, because that's such a catastrophic result for them. They can lose legislative seats here and there and be fine. But if they lose the governor's office for 4 years, that can be really devastating because the governor has a lot of power. I mean, you can go in day one repeal all kinds of executive orders and totally change the face of state government in an afternoon in a way that takes months, years, decades in the legislature.
No, it's
And
not. If you want real change, it's going to come at the top, and
yeah,
there's no question. It's going to come from the governors. As governor, that's where it has to. That's where it has to come from. And Brian, to your point on the yes, you don't want to be in a super minority position, and so that's job one is to help. Part of the election is make sure that doesn't happen, as we talked about in the beginning, and that's super important. But I would say this too is I've had Democrats reaching out to me, kind of under the radar.
yeah,
I think they'd love,
I'd imagine.
I think they'd love some cover, frankly.
Yeah.
I do think there are obviously there are those that are so partisan and so whatever, but there are those that are saying this isn't working and we need a little bit of balance. And I want, to be able to vote on things that I think make sense and not worry about getting attacked by a union ad or whatever, which just happened in the last session. And I would also argue that you need you need an election, you need a candidate, you need a movement that excites people. And we've had independents and Democrats saying, hey, we're going to re-register and maybe vote in the primary and vote. People want a choice that they can believe in and they can, and I'm not, I kind of say that I'm not running, it's kind of a line, but it's true. I'm not running to be someone. I'm running to do something. It's like the only reason I'm doing this is because I care about the state of Oregon. And my kids are, thanks to Chris, my wife, are sixth generation Oregonians. Eventually, we're going to have seventh generation Oregonians. And it's like, what's the legacy? What are we leaving? What are we leaving people right now? And it disturbs me how many, it's like, don't give up. Do not give up. Let's vote, get energized, get out there. And I think there's a real movement that we can tap into with the right message and messenger. There's a movement that we can tap into and we can win. And it took Governor Kotek all of 10 seconds to mention the president's name when she announced her reelection. But it's going to be, I'm sorry, sorry for my counterpart. The president's name is not on the ballot. Mine is. And I'm about Oregon. I want to get Oregon's house in order. I am focused on these issues that we have to focus on: education, economy, livability, which includes safety, affordability. And I will be pounding the table on those issues and saying, this is what everyday Oregonians, this is impacting where you live, where you work, where you play. Let's focus on this and let's turn the state around.
Who doesn't want to turn the state around is home builders in Vancouver and Southwest Washington, because they have been doing really well with Portland's Doom Loop, with everybody moving across the river. And I think that's what we're losing all of those, that even the money, right? We talk about, the people that make a decent amount of living. They're not going to live in Portland. They can go across the pond. Even in Washington, they can go live over there and not pay nearly as much in taxes as they are living in Portland. And that's kind of all part of that whole doom loop issue. And I really hope that whoever wins the primary, if it's you, that because Portland, I've gone at the governor's race where you say, okay, you run against Portland, who cares? Leave Portland behind, go win everywhere else. I just feel like we can't do that. I think you got to win. Portland has to become the city of roses again, not the city of roaches, and that's the only way the whole state wins. It's such a shitty spot to be in, but I kind of feel like we have to, as a state, we got to drag Portland back. And I don't know. You're touching on it. And I think keeping the Blazers would be important. If we lose the Blazers, Chris, talk about just demoralizing to us, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that was our, like I said, with Rip City Forever, talking about that, telling the city, telling the state, be prepared. Here's what's coming. Now, I don't like I think they've gotten taken advantage of by the deal that was put forward. I fault it's just mind-boggling to me that nobody in the governor's office, frankly, nobody in the legislature, thought to really dive into what were the terms of relocation. Yeah. And that was something when Paul Allen did it in I think it was 95. with the Rose Garden, now the Moda Center.
Yeah.
There was a 40-page document he had to sign that he would not move the team for 30 years. And now it's 20 years and maybe, you got to pay off the bond. It's like, that's not a big deal when it's a $4 billion franchise that may be worth 7 or 8 billion some in another city. You need a bigger ironclad, and it's just, to me, and not to dive. I could go into the details.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to. But the bigger issue is we don't have anybody, frankly, it feels like in the governor's office or sometimes even the legislature that have that background of how to negotiate deals, work on deals, what makes sense, have a real business background, and understand some of these things. And I feel like they got taken advantage of. We've got a deal right now where it's supposed to be a public-private partnership, and the private's not putting in any money. And it's like, what?
It's public.
And not only that, and I'll get off the soapbox on this, but I get a little fun. Is the lack of vision. Is you don't just wait until receive an offer and then say take it or leave it, or else. You should be proactive in what deal you think makes sense for the state of Oregon, for the city of Portland, for the Blazers, for the and what makes sense economically. We did none of that. We took whatever they gave us and we signed it with a gun to our head, and it's just not. I used to, when I came to Oregon in '93, and at the time politically, Oregon had a reputation of being a leader, visionary. You're not agree with everything, you might whatever, but you had the land use bill, you had the bottle bill, the beach bill, just different things that were going on over time, and kind of thinking outside the box or pushing it a little bit. Now we just go from crisis to crisis to crisis. We're always in a reactive situation, and I just feel like we've lost our vision, lost our leadership, and we just need to get back to that and have some pride in what we're doing and be a little vision going forward.
To that point, Reagan has one last question for you before we let you go, but I just want to, on this Blazer thing, I think you hit on something that I was so upset about, was that the fact that there was no, like, you had that whole Albina vision. We got the whole Rose Quarter problem. We got the whole Lloyd Center problem. Like, why didn't we get wider with, because when you take public money, you can redevelop an entire area, right? And we should have got wider with that whole redevelopment, turn that into an economic development powerhouse of an area that could have changed that entire Lloyd Center area to really become something like they have in other cities, where Phoenix has got that, they're doing a whole thing. They've been able to take these sports teams and turn sections of cities into economic hubs, and just that lack of vision. And I think you hit it on it, because we have the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, and the Governor all have zero business experience.
No, zero.
So,
and I was just, and I would kind of work with legislators on the Republican side and kind of feed them ideas. But it was, and I know it's hard when you're in super minority, but it's like nobody was saying, hey, we should take this and really look at this and make this. And it's kind of the mindset. You can either say this is a crisis, or you can say it's an opportunity. And today's world, our Salem as a whole deals with everything as a crisis, and this could have been a golden opportunity where you've got a group that is spending over $4 billion, $4.25 billion investing into Portland, investing in Oregon. That is not happening anywhere else right now.
No.
And we could have used that as an opportunity to say, how do we team up? How do we combine this with what's going on with AVT, Albina Vision Trust? The Lloyd Center is a unique opportunity, right? Just at least we should have. Maybe you end up doing the same thing that we're doing, but at least look at it. And there just wasn't the vision, the time, the effort put into that on how do we make this inject life, badly needed life into Oregon, into Portland in particular. This could have been a great way to kind of revitalize it and say this,
Yeah.
let's go forward. This is a great way to kind of turn around our city and get some life back into it.
Yeah.
And we didn't do it. We
The
didn't do
whole
it.
east side of the waterfront, the whole, I mean,
Yes,
it
it's
really
a
could
big
have been
deal.
a game changer.
No, there's
Yeah.
so many parts that are, and that's why I was excited about it and thought it was obviously nobody wants the Blazers to stay in Portland more than me, but I was also excited by all the opportunities that are there, and that is that what is happening across the country. It's not just the arena; it's the area around it that becomes a big
Yep.
deal. That becomes a
Yeah.
economic driver of your cities. And so, yeah, we should have used it as an opportunity to do more
I'm with you.
So,
and brought in private dollars as well, not just public.
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that is, you spend some time paying attention, watching the legislature. In since I've been there, so I've been there. I was there as a small child when the Republicans were in control. I don't know anything about the policies really that happened, just stuff I read now in history, or things I read that Democrats are mad about that happened in the 90s. And then I was there in 2013 for a few sessions, and those were very close sessions in the Senate in terms of numbers, and that produced,
Yeah.
I think, a lot better policy. And then recently more in the near super minority and super minority when I've been back. And it is a story of missed opportunities essentially for Oregon, where there's so much that we could have done, but either failure to, look some big interests in the eye and say, you can't have everything you want today, or just the lack of vision, like you said, to capitalize on those opportunities really is the story of this last few legislative sessions for both parties. I think there's been opportunities that have been missed. And but I think, and that kind of goes into this final question, and we've been giving each of the governor's candidates that have come on the opportunity to talk about and energize people, get people excited. So you can go either path, you could do both. What is a kind of day one executive order or a day one appointee that you want to announce or put forward that kind of gives people an idea of this is the kind of government, this is how I govern, this is the kind of governor that I'm going to be? Because I think, you've talked about a lot of stats and a lot of important things and a lot of things that a lot of Oregonians know about. What's something that you can share? And partly this is just me and Brian wanting to break news, but what's something you can share, maybe a small specific thing of this is the kind of governor I am, to get voters excited about you, especially in the primary and the general election?
I think, again, running on the core messages: education, economy, livability, which is affordability and safety. And I think one thing there's a number of, the day one, I don't believe you announce names for coming in on, when you're in the primary, and you do that as you get closer. And I do think that's going to be important as you get towards the general here. On education, state of emergency on day one, and that we
Okay.
have to refocus. And you look at, and the good news with all these areas I'm talking about, all these numbers, is there are solutions. You look at education, for example. You look at Mississippi. They call it the Mississippi Miracle, where Mississippi went from 47th to the top 5 in reading in just a couple years by focusing on the science of reading and of accountability and a few other pieces in there, but made great strides quickly. And it wasn't based on more dollars. It was based on the way that you're teaching and the way you're handling. We have good kids and we have good teachers in our state, but we have a bad system, bad leadership. So focusing on day one on education, the economy, saying Oregon is open for business. We need a governor who will work with businesses that are here and recruit new businesses to the state, and be able to say that. We haven't had that since Governor Atiyeh had to do it in the early 80s because Oregon was in an economic crisis and had to make a transition. So focusing on the economy. One of the areas as governor that did not, I said there's a number of tools that the governor has that I didn't mention earlier, is the power of appointment. There's close to 300 boards and commissions in the state of Oregon, as well as judges and agency heads. And not one person in any of those positions, those 300 boards, commissions, or anywhere, has been appointed by a Republican governor. Not one. So on day one, you can say, we're going to move we're going to move to balance our state, to get back on those boards, commissions, and at least restore some balance. That's a big deal that is often overlooked because that impacts everyday life in a big way. And that's something that comes across loud and clear as I travel the state. The message I get traveling the state is that Oregon's gone from business unfriendly to business adversarial. And we need to change that and say, hey, as governor, I can guarantee you, now I got to get out of the super minority, but as governor, with the power of the pen, I will not approve anything that is anti-business. And that you've seen where every session, business leaders small business is scared what's coming next. So you can change that on day one. You can say, no, you have a friend. And part of it's the communication too. It's shocking to me how little of communication there is sometimes between whether small business or even big business with the governor's office. I'll give you a classic example there. A friend of mine is a former CEO of Dutch Brothers, and I think he said this publicly, so I'm not talking out of school. But the governor's office called him, 5 weeks before they moved to Arizona and said, what can we do? And he said, well, you could have called 2 years ago or 5 years ago. You know, it's like, to me, it is literally mind-boggling that you did not have any communication going up to there. So having a governor that will embrace business, but Oregon businesses, Oregon values, and small business is so integral to all our communities. To be able to help foster a growth situation is incredibly important. Another area I'm focused on is safety. We have to do a better job protecting our citizens. That's one of the key roles of governor. And another area beyond that is getting the poison off our streets. And I differentiate between just drugs like a marijuana or something else, and the poison that literally will kill you if you do it once, twice, 3 times, like a fentanyl, a tranq, those sort of things. To me, we have to get those off our street because they are literally, and we don't have enough time to get into it now, I know, but it saddens me how many I've experienced talking to a person who's overdosed and is no longer with us, or talking to parents of kids who've overdosed. Just how often that is happening in our state it has to be stopped. So that's another area. So those are the core areas where on day one I will be driving that agenda hard. Education, state of emergency. The economy, we're open for business. Safety, we're going to protect our streets and our parks and our playgrounds and wherever else. And affordability is another issue, which I am focused on, and this might be the news. I'm focused on how hard it is for everyday Oregonians to survive in our state right now. Right now, over half our citizens are living month to month. And, frankly, I know what that's like from having grown up in that situation, know what it's like when the car breaks down and you're like, all right, what do we do this month to be able to pay for it? We highlight, and I've highlighted that the high end, the tax rate, Portland has the second highest tax rate in the nation next to New York City. But what's often overlooked is the working class. We have the highest tax rates in the country on working class citizens. And if it's from 200 on down or 100 on down, if you're making even 80,000, you are paying the highest personal income tax rate in the country.
I love that. It's just so exciting to be doing that. I'm just like, why can't we fix that? That seems like a common sense thing. Well, everybody agrees on.
To me, it is that that would be a day one. That'll be something I'm running on. Obviously, you'll have to push it through, and it's you have to get support. But say we have to allow our working class citizenships to be able to afford to live in Oregon. And we want, and again, this is why running on a message that will have, in my opinion, have broad appeal. It doesn't matter if you're Republican, Independent, Democrat, you want good schools. You want jobs available. You want safe streets, and you want to be able to afford to live here. And those are the things that I'm focused on, and we need to address all those areas. So on day one, those will be my I'll come in. It won't be a surprise to anybody because I'll be pounding the table in those areas. This is what we're
Good.
doing to restore Oregon and get it back to the way it should be.
Don't shy away from the drug thing, Chris.
I won't.
I think you're on something there
I
that I
won't.
think people don't really want to talk about because I think they think it's hard to talk about, but I think it's important because the drugs they're literally killing people.
If I
And
have 2 minutes, I'll tell
yeah.
you how, Brian, this just really impacts me. That I've probably been in Old Town in Portland 10 times. Wallace Park in outside of Salem is dirt
Horrible.
world up here in the Redmond Bend area. Spending time with homeless, and in it was in Portland where I got to know somebody in his mid 20s, and he was kind of get to know his story, and you knew he was on drugs, and but developed a relationship, and then a week later you find out he's dead from a fentanyl overdose. And then as I'm traveling the state, I was in Boardman, and a lady comes up to me afterwards, and she tells me, and I knew this, but she tells me, it's not just in the cities where this is happening. She said my granddaughter overdosed last week and on fentanyl and died, and she thought she was smoking marijuana. She didn't know she was, and it killed her. And so that, Brian, well,
Yeah.
both you guys know when you get into this and you get to the numbers and they roll off, you get familiar with them and you talk about them. But it's the stories behind the numbers that drive you, that get you up every morning and get you out there. And it's just seeing what's happening in our state on so many levels, whether it's from people not being able to afford to live here, or parents worried about their schools, or from literally losing people to drug overdoses. It drives me and says, hey, we can do so much better as a state.
Yeah. Especially with the kids. My boys are slightly younger than your kids, but one's a senior now and my youngest, and then the oldest is in college. But that was always my biggest fear, was that they would go to some party. It wasn't the party back in the day when, you go out to the reservoir or the lake and it was just, you're lucky if you got a Miller Lite out of the
Yeah,
deal.
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
now it's, oh, somebody says, oh, here's just a pill. It's a marijuana or it's a gummy, but you don't know what's in that shit. And you see it. And I just told them all, my boys, I mean, that's my biggest fear whenever they're hanging out with their friends or because I know they're going to do certain things. You just got to like, dude, stay away from that stuff because that
yeah,
can kill you in an instant. And I don't think they realize that. And I think because or worst case, even than that, you get hooked and then you end up down this crazy downward spiral that puts you on the street. And I think the
yeah,
homeless stuff is all driven by drugs. I mean, we
yeah,
keep trying to go treat homeless by throwing money into shelters and all this other crap when we're not actually fixing the root problem, which is
yeah.
drugs,
Yeah. Oh,
So
absolutely. We have an addiction crisis, and I mean, shelter is definitely part of it. I mean, we need shelter, but if you put somebody who's mentally ill or drug addicted into a new apartment, what do you
yeah,
think's going to happen? It's not going to work well.
yeah,
And so we have to focus on those core areas. So,
yeah, I agree. Crazy. Well, thanks, Chris. Thanks for coming
yeah,
on, and wish you the best of luck, in your campaign and all the Republican candidates, really. I mean, there's a few that I wouldn't mind seeing drop out and get away, but whoever wins, the primary, I mean, I think we do have a challenge, but we have an opportunity, and I think you touched on it. I really think the opportunities, what we have to focus on is we have an opportunity to be a great state. And I think we have all the things, the makings of being a great state, but man, we just know how to kick ourselves in the balls on the way to
yeah,
that.
we do.
Yeah.
We do. Well, we got to get through, run on, like I said, run on the right message, and I'll argue right messenger. And, uh,
Good.
there's a path, and we get that energy going. And I'm feeling it. I am, as I'm traveling the state, it
Yeah.
has been so cool. I mean, even, it doesn't matter where I am. I mean, we're having packed houses, and there's just an energy out there. And I had an event in Portland where half the crowd was Democrats, and then I had a event here in Sisters just a week ago where there was 200 plus people, and we put
Yeah.
out notice like the day before. There is there's a real energy out there that I'm excited about. So
Agree. I think you and Ed both are creating the energy. I think if I were to handicap the race, I think you two are creating the energy right now that I'm seeing translate up. And then I think I think it's going to be a two-person race. Honestly, I think that it'll be between you two, and we'll see where that shakes out. I mean, in 2010, you ran against
Alan
Alan Alley,
Alley.
who was pretty popular, but
Yeah,
you
it
only
was.
won that one by what, 3 points? Maybe three
No,
or four
no, it
points?
was more than that. It was like
Was it?
42, 20, or
Okay.
30. I mean, it might have been 10 or 12. I mean, but Alan was good. And
Every
That's
politician
not
goes,
to diss
well,
Alan.
I won by more.
Yeah, Alan's he is a good man. In
Yeah.
fact, I say that, and he's endorsed me, which is nice. And that was something, frankly, that I will say too, is that when we ran, and I try to follow Reagan's 11th Amendment. We don't need to beat each other up with the personal stuff and all that.
Yeah, I agree.
I run the high road. I run on my message, and I'm friends with the people I ran against, and I think that's
I
important.
forgot about this primary. Dudley, 39%. You got 122,000 votes. You're the only candidate to get over 100,000. Alan Alley got 31%. John Lim, 15%. Bill Sizemore, 7.5%. Yeah, that was,
Well,
that was crazy
Bill
year.
was the deal before deal.
Yeah, right. That's true. Yeah.
So
And now you both live in Central Oregon. I mean,
yeah,
Seymour lives in
yeah.
Redmond. You live in Sisters. I mean, everybody's coming over here.
Yeah, no, it's a good spot. So I think it's and yeah, that's where you can get fact checked quickly, right?
No,
But I was pretty close.
everybody
I
wants to
said-
say they won by
yeah,
a little bit more.
I was the one that was accurate. So, but
More
no,
than
they
me.
were good candidates, good race, and like I said, I remain friends with all of them afterwards, and I think that's important. That when you come
Yeah.
out, you're able to quickly say, "Hey, let's group together. We got to get this."
I really think is speaking of energy, the only side that has any energy right now, I believe, is Republicans. I mean,
Yeah.
in Oregon, there is no energy in the Democrat side, and
No,
I have a lot
there
of
isn't.
Democrat friends too, and they're all kind of pretty. Bleh.
No, they are, but you have to be able to run on a message that where you can win independents and some Democrats.
Yep,
If you don't, it's
I agree.
you have to have that message, and there's a way of doing it. Anyway, so uh, appreciate you both.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
All right, look forward to it. I'll see you guys down the road.
All right, see you, Chris.
All right, see you. Bye.
Well, Brian, we did it. We broke news. Day one, executive order declaring an education state of emergency. I thought he might use that in his stump speech, so it might not be the first time anyone's heard it, but I think it's the first time it's been published. So we'll take it. Crosstabs, breaking news.
I said a few things that I thought. Obviously, I'm a Chris fan. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You probably kind of could tell that. You probably pushed it back a little bit more than I did on it. I just think he brings a different thought to the race
Yeah,
that was kind of needed. Otherwise, I think we have this Christine Ed thing.
right.
I just feel like Chris brings a different thought process in a primary that we have to have that discussion because, and I didn't bring it up in there, but, I still can't find a Republican, and I will ask Chris next time, is how do you get above 45%? How do you get to 50%? I still don't know. That's just my biggest problem because, I have to look at it analytically and I just have a hard time.
The numbers are tough. And I think that's where I start on this one is it's just, I don't know how you get there because, and this is the thing, is solving for Trump is the hardest thing. And Bueller, this was his problem too, I think, and really kneecapped him. I think there were other things that were sort of challenging about his campaign and the way he ran. But
his problem was the messenger, like Chris talked about. I'm not a Bueller fan, but that's okay.
I would say he delivers very robotically. What was weird to me was because I worked with him in the legislature and he was very good person to person, but he was not great in public speaking situations. I didn't feel like he was necessarily a guy that was compelling, that drove people to, to change sides, essentially, right? To move from a more conservative candidate to a very clearly less conservative candidate. And that's the thing that I think Bueller did, was he ran on, I am not a conservative. And I don't know if you know this, really hard to get conservative Republicans to vote and get excited for that.
Yeah.
And I think if Dudley, and I think one of the things I like about Dudley is he's not rolling out the same team that has run a lot of those races. Because guess what? The team that ran Bueller is the same team that ran Betsy Johnson, is the same team. And I liked Newt Bueller and I liked Betsy Johnson as people. And I think that there was a lot to like about them. Certainly would be better governors if they were governors today. Yeah. But that team is the team that actually just hates Republicans. Yeah. And so it turns out when your campaign hires people who hates Republicans, everything about the campaign really turns off those Republicans. And that's the thing that I think Dudley has done that's smart this time. And say, hey, maybe I shouldn't take every chance I can to smash on and attack my base to try to pick up some votes in the middle. You have to win votes in the middle. You have to win Democratic votes. I'm not saying that at all. That's quite literally math. We have a 8.5 point registration advantage for Democrats. You need independents. You need non-affiliates. You need moderate Republicans. You need conservative Republicans. Attacking any of those groups, though, is not how you get there. And I think that's the other thing about Dudley that's different, is a lot of these candidates, and even Betsy Johnson a little bit, went on the attack mode against Portland. And sure, that's an applause line, but that's very much preaching to the choir. And there's all these people in Portland who haven't moved yet. And so they probably don't hate Portland. They probably hate the way Portland is today. And Dudley speaks about Portland in a way that is positive, that is Ronald Reagan shining city on a hill is what Portland should be type of an idea. And I think that is another thing that's different about, and our Republicans in the legislature, you hear all the time, whether in public speaking, whether in committee, whether in, just behind closed doors, negative all the time. And I think that stuff is corrosive and has turned us into, like you were talking about at the beginning, a party of losers. And people are tired. Republicans in Oregon are tired of losing. The rank and file are tired of losing. We got to stop listening to the negative voices that only want to talk about and only want to do stuff that will cause us to lose. And I think that's really the only opportunity that Dudley has to change things. And
the only, of course, he did say everything's an emergency in the legislature. And then he said on day one, he's going to declare a crisis, an emergency on education.
I think it just matters. That's a heading for doing stuff. And if the things on the list are good, the heading isn't going to matter as much. The governor's declared a housing emergency, and some of the things that she's done have been good. I think it's been, unfortunately, a little heavily tilted towards housing for homeless folks as opposed to just fixing the housing crisis and then fixing the drug issue. But that's a Democrat-Republican disagreement about how to solve that problem. And
he's been Kotek's been the
best
probably
governor
the
on
most
housing.
Pro-housing governor we've had in a long time. By far. But the bar was so low for her to beat that, because what you should do as a governor, you should say, basically, and I got this from a Democrat, so I'm not going to attribute it to her, but she said what you should do is for 5 years, build like hell. Every regulation is gone except for health and safety. There is no UGB. There is no just build, and try to catch up, because the only way you're going to ever solve that problem is through abundance, right? You can only solve an emergency through an abundance of whatever it is you're trying to solve.
Yep.
And so you have to do that in the course of that. It doesn't have to be forever, but it does have to be. And that's right. And I think the same with education is you have to come in and say, okay, all of you, this, state of emergency, and then here's how we're going to fix it. And it's not going to be a little bites at the apple or do this or that. Like, no, we're going to clean this house, clean that house, change this, like you said with the, was the Mississippi Miracle or whatever, down there. There were some good things, and you and I have kind of talked about that with education. There's been that one, and I think like Maryland also had their own example of going kind of from the bottom to the top. And
which means it's not partisan. It's just about solutions. And there are some very big interests in this state. There's the environmental interests who don't want solutions on housing. They don't. They put it in their marketing because they know they will get smacked around if they don't. They don't want to build any more houses. And that's the dirty little secret that they won't tell anybody, but is true. And I have heard it. And they go around in private meeting rooms and in fundraisers and stuff, making sure that everybody knows that they still stand for building nothing. And then they go out in the public and they say, just responsible. We just want sideboards. We just want, it's just not true. It really isn't true. And then you have, like you're talking about in education, you have an education establishment. A very, very bad education establishment. And unfortunately, I think it's an unholy union between a school boards association that has just absolutely lost its way, both in terms of the people they have there now who are not interested in really doing the things that would matter on local control. They're interested in preserving the status quo, and a teachers union that is much weaker than it used to be, but is still powerful enough to push, especially in their endorsement meetings, a far left agenda that's more focused on Palestine kids than it is on Portland kids, frankly. And so these guys are the ones that are in the way of progress. And I think we started to see the dam break a little bit in this short session. And if Democrats go all in on abundance, and this plays into what we're going to talk about over the next few weeks in terms of primaries, is the choices that Democrat voters, especially Democrats, because they control the legislature right now, make in these primaries is going to determine what kind of a state we're going to be in these races where Democrats winning the general election, whether we have a red wave or a blue wave. So they need to make the right choices to save their state. And if they elect a big Democrat socialist caucus, we're in trouble. We're in some serious trouble. And even Democrats will tell you. Now, again, they're saying it behind closed doors because they're afraid of what these guys will do to them if they win, which doesn't. I don't understand the point of that, because they're going to take out leadership they don't agree with as soon as they get big enough to do that. So you kind of should probably say, hey, the barbarians are at the gate. We probably shouldn't let them in. But I digress. I understand those are hard choices and you got to pick your spots and all that. I hope the leadership on the Democratic side of the aisle is doing that. I believe they have folks that want to do that, that want to do the right thing. But there's a couple of these primaries where it is straight, flat out, communist socialists versus people who believe in free markets and freedom. And that's the battle. It's all, and then Brian, that's always the battle. It's always freedom in America versus the communists. It's always boils down to that.
It has been for a while. I think and then communism just will kind of boil back up. But I think communism boils up when capitalism kind of starts losing its way a little bit.
That's right.
Because capitalism needs to bring up the bottom a little bit, and then people love capitalism because it makes their lives better. But that, to make capitalism work, means that Reagan needs to go out and start a business and start his own carpet cleaning business, and then he hires three other guys, and then they franchise into another town and start a carpet cleaning business, and then now all of a sudden Reagan becomes a millionaire because or a quasi-millionaire, it makes, $500,000 a year, and he's hiring people, and they're bringing and they're winning. And what I think what we're having in this, especially in our state and even in the country as a whole, is that it's harder and harder for you to go start that carpet cleaning business. It's harder and harder for you to do that. And so then the socialism kind of starts taking hold, because people go, well, that's not fair that Elon Musk has that much money. That's not fair that Jeff Bezos has that much money. And they use these big examples, but they're, none of us are going to be that, but some of us can be the carpet cleaning king of Len County, right? I mean, but
is that just because my dad ran a carpet cleaning business? Is that why?
No, I have no. I was just more. Maybe that was subconsciously put into my deal, but the reality is that, right? Like, I don't care if it's an electrician or whatever the thing may be that motivates you, but the reality is most people can have an awesome life in America through owning some random little professional service like that. Versus, Elon Musk, but they use Elon Musk to really drive their agenda on socialism is you're not going to ever make anything because of X, right? And I think we'll break down. I can't wait till we break down. We're going to have because we got some crazy primaries out there. So we're going to have to do like a 2-episode breakdown, one on the D's and one on the R's.
Yes, absolutely.
There's a lot going on, and we're going to break down. That's probably going to take us, Maybe next week we'll do it. I mean, or the week after. I don't want to wait too long, so we'll definitely do it pretty soon. We have one more governor's interview to do. Ed Deal's going to come on hopefully this week. I think we have a tentative date set up. I'll be curious to hear about that one. And then, yeah, then I think Reagan, after that last governor's primary, then it's got to be all like legislative stuff. So we'll get back into the legislative primaries, few more interviews with some people. I know I've been getting some emails and texts from people wanting to get on an interview. Our commission stuff. I've even gotten a couple commissioner candidates that want to come on because they heard us say we were going to break down the commission races. So we got a lot of work to do, Reagan. I mean, maybe we'll have to start podcasting every day, but you won't let me. But
I will not. Twice a week is a lot already, Brian. But you worked with me usually to shorten the episode. This was a longer one, but you only get one chance to interview Mr. Chris Dudley. So we're going to take our opportunity and maximize it. So
yeah, we'll see how it goes. Maybe we'll have him on again as we get right up close to the primary. But I think that was a good interview for people to kind of at least get a take of where he's coming from. I do like that he just focuses on what he's doing, and he really, doesn't seem to necessarily even care what the other candidates are doing. It's like, I mean, I'm sure he's paying attention, but he's just doing him.
He doesn't want to talk about it. And I think that's smart. I think right now he's introducing himself again to voters. I mean, his name idea is not what it was in 2010. It's not the same as Drazen. So I think that makes sense. I think the last question and really the hardest thing to answer, and the thing that I am interested to see, I don't know. And I think his approach feels a little bit out of time, or at least different, because it's not the Trump approach. Every candidate today is trying to do their best imitation of Trump. Now it's Oregon, so they got to kind of be a little bit sneaky about it. But you just see that they're, active on social media, out there attacking the issues they pick to talk about. Very different than the issues that were of the, I would say, very Bush era Republican Party, or even the kind of Romney 2012 style. Dudley feels very much like a Romney 2012, a 2000 era's Bush Republican. And I think the real question is for him, does he bring that back, and can he do it successfully? And I think that's where I don't know the answer. I have some doubts about that, just because of how MAGA the Republican primaries get these days. I mean, you've worked in a couple of primaries recently, working in a few more, maybe. Very, very MAGA heavy. At least the active Republicans are very MAGA. Maybe there's a bunch of quiet Republicans that really they're just going to quietly go out there and they're going to vote for Chris Dudley. They're going to push him over the top. But the real question is even if he has the most money, which I don't know that he will, but he has the potential to, obviously, with Phil Knight backing him, is even if you spend all of the money on the wrong ad, you don't win necessarily. And so what's his message going to be when rubber meets the road, when you have to drop the mail, when you have to put the TV up, right? He can talk about whatever he wants right now. What's he going to do when it gets into the real time, and when ballots are dropping, all that stuff, and how does he stick to those same things, or does he push a little bit more to the right to help him out? I'm interested to see all that. I think that's going to be fascinating to watch.
It will. Yeah, it's good times. All right. Well, in the interest of your time, we can end the podcast. But we'll end it with the Trailblazer in high tops. So
yes,
I'll put that in the edit at the end. So people, I mean, it's not the best of songs, but I mean, how many people get songs written about them? So we'll put it on there for the sake of it.
Awesome.
Right. See you, Reagan.
Thanks, Brian.
16 seas.